Bear with us, we'll let everyone gather, and we're just going to go live on the Google Hangout. All right, this is Candy Marshall. We are going live on Google Hangout, and we have a number of people joining us by phone. And I'm going to ask those who are on the phone if you can mute your phone so we don't hear the background noise. I think that will help with the audio. And do we have Jim on the line yet? Hello, Laura, how are you? Welcome, Delia.
Hey, guys.
We're just letting people gather, and I know we have some people who are also online and joining us via Google Hangout, and some who are joining us via phone.
Okay, yeah. So we can be on both?
No, you can be on one or the other.
Okay. Oh, I see you. Cool. Okay.
All right, just as soon as Jim gets on the line, I'm going to get us started. And if he doesn't join us soon, I may even just start to do setting the stage for what he's going to share with us. For those of you who have joined, Jim is just a master at evaluating and scoring college essays, and particularly college essays of dreamers. So, and he can only be with us for a short while today, so we're actually just going to start with him. Jim, did that happen to be you joining us?
This is Anna.
Anna, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay, so just give us a few moments.
Yeah, they have to do either.
All right, so Gabby and Eliza are explaining to me that there's a feedback loop if you do both the conference call and Google Hangout, so you should do one or the other.
Yeah, my bad. I just got off it.
Oh.
This is Selimar Colon.
Welcome.
Hey, Candy, it's Jim. I'm sorry. I called in too soon and was left parked in some other component of the call.
Okay, not to worry. We are going to start then just now because we have the master with us. So let me welcome everyone both on the phone and in our Google Hangout. And let me start by a huge thanks for what it is you are doing for us. We appreciate this is no small ask, and I suspect that it's at a moment like this that many of you are saying, now why did I agree to do this? And all I can say is it is an incredible service that you are doing for the Dreamers, and when you do read the essays, you will find it to be a heart-filling experience. I'm going to jump right into context, and Gabby's going to put up the PowerPoint that I just sent out for us and move very quickly to set the context so that we can have Jim Ferd-Kadima talk with us about how he approaches evaluating and scoring essays, and particularly in relation to each other. So just a few slides to walk you through so you have a sense of what this looks like. Each of you will be getting a deck, and you'll be scoring 2 essays. So Gabby, if you can slip to that next slide, and one more, and one more. There we go. So for those of you on the phone, I'm looking at the slide that says the application essay prompts, and I just sent a new deck that's reordered the slides for you. You will be evaluating 2 essays. One is a 4,000 character essay on education and career goals. We want to understand what helps shape those goals, the challenges the student thinks they will face in achieving those goals, and how achieving those goals will impact others. The second essay is Overcoming Adversity. It's 2,000 characters, so a fairly short essay, and there they're describing a challenging family or personal circumstance, how they overcame it, what they learned in the experience, and how they would use that learning going forward. You will also receive a letter of recommendation, and I've given you a slide. Gabby, if you can jump ahead for us. The letter of recommendation will explain the context and how the person knows the applicant, the applicant's potential for success in college and life, and how the applicant demonstrates a number of named qualities there. And that will, you're not scoring the letter of recommendation, but it will set the context for your reviewing the essays. In addition to this, you're going to have information on the applicant, and that's the next slide in your deck. And you'll see there, you'll know their country of, next slide, Gabby, country of origin, the age upon arrival to the U.S., first in family to attend college, primary, secondary languages, and I'll let you read through that on your own. So that's what you'll have, the essays, the letter of recommendation, and some of this background information on the applicant. And with all that in mind, then you will set to score, read and score the essays. And we've given you some guidance, and you have 2 slides, one guidance on educational career goals. You'll have 60 points maximum, and we've given you a guide for below average, average, above average, and exceptional for each of those. And then with that very short introduction, which I apologize it's so short, I want to immediately turn it over to Jim, and hopefully all of you had a chance to read the essays we sent, because he's going to use as an example to share his thinking. So Jim, right over to you.
Sure.
Thank you for joining us, and I know you can only be with us a short time.
So let me just first begin by thanking you, Candy, Gabby, and others. The selection committee does the most important part, which is assigning a numeric value to the 2 essays that Candy kind of walked you through. They both ask for different aspects, different narratives, different pieces and sets of information from the applicants, and so each of them have different character limits, and of course, but have the same scoring range. So we're dealing with from 0 to 60 as the possible range of scores that could be assigned to each of the essays. So to take a look, part of what you should have been sent should have been 3 old applicants. They have fancy numeric values in the upper right-hand value, and for purposes of comparison, I'm going to refer to the last 2 letters of the 3 applicants that you have. So there's applicant 66, applicant 87, and applicant 33. So what's old from last time that I can say as we look through these 3 candidates, and that will carry over into this next round, is that there are far more deserving and compelling applicants than there are funds for. So the work of how to carefully assign a numeric value to the essays becomes really difficult, because my initial trajectory is to give everyone a 60 because they all deserve an opportunity and a shot for support to get to and complete their college dream. But there's an importance of trying to show the fine gradations between excellent candidates and near excellent candidates and average applicants and below average applicants. It's hard to do, but very important to the whole calibration of the numeric point spread. So this becomes some of the most rewarding and challenging work because you can't give everyone a 60. You should try not to. And there's fair ways to kind of put someone on that spectrum of 0 to 60. So that carries over. So that burden, that sort of challenge carries over. What will be different is than past rounds is this new application round, everything will be electronic, as opposed to previously we would send copious amounts of paper for people to flip through and review. So there'll be a facility with an online portal that you can search, that you can do other things with. So take advantage of the online portal. Now, because that it is new, there may be some quirks in the system. So if you do identify them, please speak up. Do like Candy, do like Gabby, know so that those online interface problems can be solved quickly. But the one message that hasn't changed that we have to respect as a selection committee is meeting the drop-dead deadline. There's a hard deadline where your scores have to be in. So please make the time, please make the arrangements, whether that's in the evenings, weekends, find the blocks of time so that you are delivering your scores on and before November 24th. Otherwise, this all sort of falls by the wayside. So it's important that we all complete our individual batch of scoring that we will receive shortly. But taking a look at applicants 66, 87, and 33, what you'll notice is between applicant 66 and 87, I scored one extremely low and one extremely high. And then if you actually compare 87 to 33, they both got extremely high scores, but they have completely different life trajectories and life experience. And actually, if you look at the 87 and 33 applications, the grammar and the structure and the polish is very different, but they both got 60. So I'm going to try to walk us through why there could be such differences in the range of scores, 40 to 60, and why how two people receiving 60 scores that have very different presentations of their application got such high scores.
So before you go on, I'm looking at the PDF. This is James Percy. I was looking at the PDF that has the sample applications, and you're saying it's one of those, what you're going to describe?
Yeah, so if you all look at the upper right-hand corner of the old applications, they all have really long numbers. I think they all begin with 2014 dash, and then it's a 5 series of numbers. If you look at the last two numeric values, I'm looking at applicant 66 and 87 to begin with. I can read you the full number if that helps.
I have that. No, I have it. Thank you.
Okay. And I'll interject, Jim, because I didn't actually tell people the scores that you had given because I wanted them to read them without those scores. So now they are learning for the first time how you scored them.
Well, I won't tell you between 66 and 87 who got the 40 and who got the 60. But taking a look at applicant 66, again with the last two numbers, this is an applicant from Mexico who arrived at age 4 and has a pretty high GPA. If we just look at length of stay in the U.S. and their reported GPA, you would think this person is an accomplished student. But what we're doing here is judging people on the opportunity and their performance, all playing under the same rules. So based on the essay prompts or the requests that were put out in the application for this round, people had the same opportunity to leverage factors and narratives in their background and present them. And so the weight that I reached in arriving at these wasn't immediate. I actually had to read the full batch, so including applicant 66, applicant 87, and many others. And I grouped them just based on my initial impression based on where they rank in a particular spectrum of choices. And then it came down to kind of grouping people that were truly exceptional, people that were above average, people that were average and below average, and then having to really challenge myself, what numeric value? Was I going to give someone 40 points, 45 points? Was I going to give someone 30 points? Or even shade the difference between that, between two top performing applicants? Did I want to give 160 and 159? These are sort of struggling questions, but it's important to kind of grade in context for the batch that you have, and that will go a long way to alleviate you of trying to make sense of who's perfect and who has an imperfect presentation but has incredible promise. But taking a look at 66, this is an applicant who had who wanted marketing management as their major. And the challenge of the educational career goal essay is the 40,000 character window. So they have more that they can tell us in this portal or this submission. And part of the command then, as is now, is to look at them in context of their personal history and the articulation of their plans or their paths forward. And we don't just have to look at the 4,000 characters here. You can also look at the collateral documents that are submitted, including the letter of recommendation. But all of that in its totality should give you a sense of, does someone have really a articulated plan? Now, for folks that have arrived at the U.S. at very young ages, you would think that they would have a better sense of what it takes to be competitive in college, to succeed, have a connection between why they want to do something and where they're headed, have some clear narrative rather than some amorphous ambitions of going to college. But it was really interesting. In all the range of applicants, you saw some very clear, defined goals. In some, in others, you didn't. And it never matched based on how long someone's tenure in the U.S. was. So other comparative data points that are available to you to kind of make sense of the holistic review is definitely when someone arrived, other sort of challenges that they disclose both for themselves and their family. So taking a look at both the context of the personal history and taking a look at the articulated plans, there was a lot in applicant 66 that threw me for a loop. There was a lot of informal presentation in this applicant's writing style, right? It was very probably generational appropriate, but there was a lot of use of English euphemisms, phrases that are common to someone who's acculturated to the U.S. And so there was just a very conversational tone, right? Now, that isn't fatal, but it took up a lot of space. It took up a lot of characters rather than meeting the challenge of what is your why and where are you headed. And so there was a lot of there was a few typos in this application. There was a few punctuation challenges. None of them are fatal. But what I got from the history of applicant 66 was this is an applicant who faced a parental deportation that had a tremendous impact on that family's life. Felt empowered by joining a common struggle. I think there was mention of Dreamers Moms in that advocacy of effort, but there was no link of any of those events, the family insecurity of a parental deportation, or the challenges that come about with diminished income, or just the trauma of a family being separated, or being empowered through a common cause, that articulated why marketing management was this person's choice. It could be because it was the efforts that Dreamer Moms did to raise awareness, to get information out to the public, using different means and modes, sort of channels of communication. But this is something this applicant didn't present. It left me wanting that link between what happened in your life to where are you headed. So this applicant 66 was someone that I struggled with. Now, looking at the second essay, this is 2,000 characters, less room for someone to kind of leverage to their advantage, was to articulate challenging circumstances. What happened in previous rounds is there were clear prompts to applicants of what a challenging circumstance might be. We gave examples, and what we found is that people would always pitch to that specific topic. And there was some negative reaction to some life circumstances or memberships in protected categories as not being challenges, right? This is should be a sort of an affiliation or an identity that someone is proud of, that doesn't have a negative connotation. So what's different from last time when you get to the challenging circumstance question is these folks aren't being given any prompts or any directions. They are free to plead, to raise anything in their life that created a challenge or a barrier as to where they were and where they're headed. And so when I looked at this applicant's mention, there's a whole list of challenges that applicant 66 is leveraging, but there's no link to any of that sort of being a motivator, a generator, a driver of them, facing what comes next. I think this applicant mentions a very small square footage of where this applicant lives with his family. An incredibly crowded space, and how difficult it was to study. But none of that, there's a missing link in this essay that shows some savvy, some sort of tying it to, and nevertheless, I overcame, or I learned new skills, I persevered, I had drive, I had grit. So this applicant has really compelling life circumstances, but what was missing for me when I had to compare this applicant to the many others was making those causal links. That I am a marketing major because of all that I want to be a marketing major because of everything that's come before. I have overcome all of these challenges, or I'm working to overcome these challenges, or these challenges will continue, but it won't stop me as I move on. So just that subtle sort of lack of link in their articulation had me drop this person from exceptional into the above average, between average and above average. And the problem is there's so many interesting, compelling situations. This becomes all very fine shades of gray when you're assigning a point value. I let the cat out of the bag, but applicant 66 was someone who I walked away from after the initial and then in the eventual review, assigning this person 240s. Now that's not fatal because there's a lot else that is being weighed by Scholarship America, the GPA, the volunteer and the community connectedness and other factors that goes into the total ranking of this applicant. But what I was assigned in the last round, I found applicant 66 with a double 40.
Okay, and Jim, I'm going to jump in very quickly again. Sure. We are actually changing something, and it's even different than the deck that we originally sent out. We have decided that actually we're only going to use Scholarship America's scoring to determine the pool of finalists. And the essay scores will be the only scores used to decide the recipients. So suddenly, the fact that a candidate gets a 40 really can be quite important. And I'll come back and talk about why we made that change. But I just wanted to interject, and so carry on. This is so helpful.
I completely stand corrected. If that were the set of the rules, if I were scoring applicant 66 today, knowing that the additional scores or the weights they get come later in the process, I may have had a harder time assigning this applicant a double 40. Okay. But to the extent that there's a total review of multiple metrics and multiple factors later in time may sway some of you to kind of be more generous, but I think making sure that not everyone is hovering at the exact same score is important, because this is about sort of the priority of review, and more importantly, at some point there's a cutoff score. There were funds do not reach every applicant. The next applicant, I believe, was applicant 87. Mm-hmm.
Jim, so are you saying that given what Kathy just said, and the 240s, the 40 would be weighted, it will no longer be weighted against on its own. I mean, it'll be on its own now, right?
Yes. The 40s still apply, but the 40s go to where, in what order, where the cutoff point would be, if I understood Candy correct.
Yes.
And after there is a designation of the folks that have met a certain cutoff point, then the other factors like GPA, community service, and connectedness, and the other points that Scholarship America will be assigning come into play then.
Okay, cool.
So
thanks.
Yeah, I'm just going to interject one more time, and I apologize, Jim, that I didn't get this to you in advance, but it's actually the other way. So scholarship scores will be used only to determine the finalists. The finalists are the people that you are all reading their essays. And your scores will be used then to stack rank those finalists for selection of the recipients. And for those of you on the Google Hangout, I have a scoring guideline in front of you and others. If you can pull that up, you'll see a 40 is itself an above average score. Average is 30, above average is a max of 45, and exceptional, of course, is the top, which is a max of 60.
So I will admit to being a sucker. I don't think I gave out many below the 40s or in the 30s. So for me, this was a fine distinction between a 60, a 58, a 56, and down the order. But to point to an applicant that I placed higher in this range of options, for at least for myself last time, was applicant 87. Now, applicant 87 and applicant 66 are very similarly situated. When I paid attention to when people entered the country, I paid attention to their GP. They're similar in both country of origin and tenure in the U.S., but they're very differently, oddly enough, in their GPA. And I found myself reading 87 and being I found a more positive reaction, and the GPA wasn't fatal for me, because I'm asked, at least then, as is now, to look at both the educational career goal entry and then the challenging circumstances. And when I reviewed this, there was a very different thing. There was a few minor spelling issues here. There were a few minor punctuation issues here. But the amount of information and connection and link that applicant 87 provided me was pretty robust. Applicant 87 in the educational entry offered up Dash Dreams and Dash Drive, offered that she dropped out of high school, given that she learned that college would be near impossible for her. She became pregnant in her teenage years. She gave birth, eventually goes on to get her GED, talks about her long love of technology and gadgets, how she was always tasked within her family to be the solver of tech problems, and her taking advantage of a local effort called Year Up program that helped her get into an internship at a bank and to do financial fraud analysis. All of that seems more connected as to why she would want to be an information technology major. When I looked at her challenging circumstances, she too, like applicant 66, mentioned housing insecurity. Rather than being in a tight space, she talked about constant mobility. She talked about physical abuse at the hand of her stepmother, oftentimes using anti-immigrant epithets against her in a degrading way. She talked about a sibling having a medical condition and the reaction of that sibling with a disability or medical condition to bullying and eventually being depressed, and how she was always having to be the family solver of some of these issues, being the only one in the family with a license, having to be the chauffeur and drive. There was a really rich texture of a challenging circumstances that she overcomes, and a connection back to none of that is fatal. These are things that she has persevered or gotten over. And here, looking at the range of scores and comparing her to everyone else before me, I found myself really compelled to score her actually the highest possible scores. So she got the highest out of all my grades last go-round. But I thought it would be useful to point out, and I definitely want to make time for questions, is to point to another applicant. This is applicant 33. Applicant 33 actually got, now I have to find my paperwork on applicant 33.
I think it's double 60, Jim.
Yes, applicant 33 is a double 60. And this is really interesting. This is an applicant that is everything you would perceive to be an overachiever in this applicant pool. This is someone who arrived at age 2, had a long tenure with the country, longer than applicant 87, had a perfect GPA, had a 4.0, and articulated major is communications. And if you look at the presentation for the educational career goal essay, it reads flawlessly. It reads effortlessly. It begins with the life experience of the first time this applicant was on TV through a youth-run sort of broadcasting effort. High use of power vocabulary flows really nicely. This is a polished essay. Is this person's product by him or herself, or is this something that's been reviewed by someone else? It's unclear, but everyone has the ability to tap others to review and edit their work, so I didn't hold her perfect presentation against her. But it was a really interesting sort of use, and this is absolutely as perfect as you could expect any scholarship cycle of any applicant. This is polished, tight, and well leveraged. This was easy to assign a 62. But when I look back, I found myself more compelled by how much applicant 87 had to overcome in her life, being a pregnant mother and going back and getting a GED. So I found myself really struggling between someone who's classically, objectively perfect in an essay presentation, and then having to go back and bring in equity factors and overcoming obstacles. So I found myself giving my 2 highest scores to 87 and 33. And then for the rest of the batch that I went through, they were just a few points off. So my range, because I felt everyone was above average, was between the 40 and the 60 last cycle. I looked at other things. A couple of last notes. There were some applicants that had letters of recommendations that did them no good. I found myself being really angry at the recommendor for having written such a feeble, such a mean tone letter in some cases, that I just felt like I needed to, if I could, I would track down the applicant and say, never ask that person for a letter of recommendation. So you're not bound to use all aspects of the application in your approach to assigning your score. There are times where the collateral data sets and the documents that, like the letter of recommendation, can influence some of your thinking and some of the holistic review of the applicant, because it provides additional information that the person may be too shy or too proud to disclose. But at other times, it actually, you could tell that this person is not a fan or a full supporter. And so it just seemed an odd sort of question. What I did identify with people who provided negative letters of recommendation, they tended to be from late arrival applicants. So these are applicants that are arriving in their teen years rather in their tenured years into the American education system. And while the applicant's presentation is far from perfect grammatically, the sense and the tone about why and where the person is headed was there. And I could see them mentioning things that they'd overcome, with a link to them being able to survive or surmount anything in front of them. But in sort of those late arrival English language learner applications, I found myself finding a high correlation with those and the letters of recommendations being negative. So I found them less useful in that sort of subpopulation. So pay attention to the other markers, country, arrival, GPA, and recommendation to the extent it's useful. If they're not useful, then this goes to, did someone really meet the challenge about offering context of the personal history and articulated path, and a link to the articulated path in the first essay. And in the second, clear examples of drive, persistence, grit, and resilience is, I think, at the heart of what the second question is all about. Candy, will we have prompts if someone has gone over the 4,000 or the 2,000? Is there something that Scholarship America will do to show us who's gone over the character limit?
I do not believe they will show you. What you will know it, because it actually happened with one of these applicants. What you will see is if the applicant goes over the character limit, the application the essay cuts off. And so, okay, for example, 33, if you look at this, it ends with an incomplete sentence because I believe she went over the character limit. So that's how you'll know if you have an applicant who's gone over the character limit. All right, so we should, Jim, before we lose you, I want to be sure that people have time to put questions to you. So those on the Google Hangout, you can submit your questions online and we can certainly read them out loud to Jim. And to those of you on the telephone, you can feel free just to use your voice. Questions. And by the way, we have some other returning reviewers. Delia, you're one. And I don't know if Luzon was on the phone. Lauda was a reviewer. If you have anything to add, by all means do so.
I have a clarification question, make sure I understand. So in terms of using the background information of the students, so country of origin, and how long they've been in the country, and even the LOR of the teacher, that's good for getting the context, but are we using that for grading the essay? So like, let's say in the educational and career goals, there's, we read it, but then in the letter recommendation, it says something that contradicts the essay. Do you understand what I mean?
I do, and my answer, we'll see, Jim, if you can weigh in as well, is I use it to set the context. And so often what you'll find is the person providing the recommendation provides a more robust context about the student's life and things they've observed about the student that give you the context for then reading what the student's actually writing. And it might be that they've actually shared that the person has had, I'll make this up, a more privileged context in which you might hold that person then to a higher bar in terms of their essay. Or it might be that they will share difficulties this applicant has overcome that the applicant didn't get into his or her essay, and you use that as the context then to better understand them. Jim and other reviewers, is that also how you thought about it?
Definitely in some circumstances, Candy, but I will disclose that I've been offered letters of recommendation to many applicants in the last cycle. I definitely didn't get them to grade. That was the good news. But for purposes of when I was writing a letter of recommendation, I spoke to the context of that person's life, and to Candy's point, there's something you can use to kind of match or better set what's being offered, or to better get into the details of what the person might be implying. They have limits. The letter of recommendation person probably does not, if I recall correctly. So in the letters I wrote, they were pages and pages long. I didn't have a restriction. So, but I spent a lot of time making the case for the folks I recommended up on as to challenges, challenging circumstances. I actually pointed out to the legalities that exist in the state, the challenges someone from Texas would have who's applying, the challenge for someone applying to a school in DC, and the challenges of not having an in-state tuition scheme. So there are ways to use the letter of recommendations at times, if it makes sense, to kind of either set the context or identify additional factors or barriers that someone might not have self-disclosed.
Good.
Okay, so as the reader, we have that freedom to be able to use it or not.
You do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's this is Delia Garcia. I think it's best that what we're describing is supplemental. Because like Jim said, it was helpful for me to know that as a background.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? None? Anything puzzling about it?
One thing I can point out, to buy a little time or before this wraps up, is there's a disclosure of who else in the family has attended college. And that oftentimes is really interesting. There are applicants whose parents are college educated in the country of origin, and there are those who disclose that their family has had no college. But I paid attention to applicants who disclose the either no formal education or limited education of their parents, which was another contextualizing thing. So someone coming from a 2 PhD family is very different, even though that professional licensure may not carry over into the US, and that family may drop from being wealthy at home to not as wealthy in their new home. Paying attention to signs and signals that that someone comes from a home where the parent or parents have no formal education or very limited education, oftentimes better sort of frames of reference. It actually elucidates when someone is speaking of being a caregiver for a younger sibling or having to be a tutor for a younger sibling. So there are sometimes disclosures that are available in the characters, the 4,000 or 2,000 character essays that speak and inform the sort of limited disclosures, the yes-no disclosures, the applicant information that's at the top of each entry.
Good. Very, very helpful. All right, so Jim, we're nearing time that I know you need to go to get to your meeting. By the way, congratulations to Jim. I know we'll be well represented now that we have you as a part of our Department of Education.
Yay!
Yes, absolutely. So a standing round of applause. Any other questions of Jim before we lose him? All right, let me just add one comment on the letters of recommendation. You will get those as a part of your packet. And we, in this round, what we found is we had this seems to happen again and again, but we had far more applicants than we actually anticipated. So at least right now, in early stage, we have over 1,600 applications. Mm-hmm. Scholarship America is confirming eligibility, so I'm confident that number will come down because not all the students will be eligible, but I still expect it to be a significant number of applicants. And because of that, and because we have a generous donor who has just stepped up with a grant to help fund scholarships in New York City, we're going to give more than what we had anticipated as being 300 scholarships. In order to, for Scholarship America, this has been it's a tremendous burden because most of their process, unfortunately, is a manual process. So they're doing this work on the back end. They will not have sufficient time to go through letters of recommendation and remove all the names of the students when a name is there. And so that means that we're going to have to rely on the committee that, one, if you do see the name of an applicant, you hold it in confidence, because we don't disclose the names of applicants, we only disclose the names of recipients. And then second, if in reviewing an application you discover that you know this candidate well, this applicant well, please let us know, and we'll have you pass on scoring that applicant, and we'll get it to someone else for scoring. So just a little bit of tidbit and a request of you to help us manage the volume that we'll have here. So with that, Jim, I'll let you be on your way, and then for our committee, I'll now go back and start at the very beginning. And so, Gabby, I think what might be most helpful then is if you just go to the slide that is about TheDream.Us. Thanks. Most of you, I think, are familiar with this, and so I'm just going to walk through this quickly. And I encourage you, as we go, to interrupt with questions or write them in on the Google Hangout. We believe that dreamers should have the opportunity to realize the American dream and obtaining a college education and contributing to the prosperity of our nation. Our mission is that we provide college scholarships to highly motivated dreamers, and I'll talk more with you about that, who without this financial aid cannot afford to go to college. In some ways, we think of ourselves as the Pell Grant for dreamers. It's a bit of a misnomer, because our scholarship truly is for tuition and fees, and the Pell Grant can be used more broadly. But our scholarship is $6,250 per year, or up to $6,250, and the Pell Grant tends to be around $5,500. So really what we're trying to do is somewhat level the playing field for dreamers. Our goal, long-term goal, is to establish, to award over 2,000 scholarships and enable those students through support services provided by our partner colleges and our other partners to graduate with career-ready degrees. So there's the context for our work. I have a slide on our model, and I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that other than to just speak to one point of it, which is the importance of partner colleges. Our scholars can only use our scholarship to go to our partner colleges, and they are selected based on their commitment to both serve and graduate low-income first-generation students, and even better yet, dreamers, and many of them have a very strong commitment to dreamers. So we've selected them based on that commitment. They agree to provide an affordable path to a bachelor's degree of no more than $25,000 in total, not per year, in total, to achieve a bachelor's degree. And then they also commit to have a student advisor for every cohort of scholars that we send their campus. So it's a big commitment that these partner colleges make to us, and a very important part of our model in not just getting our scholars into college, but ensuring they get out of college. So now, let's move on and talk about, briefly, the scholarship itself. In this round, we're actually giving two different scholarships. One is a scholarship for first-time college students, and the second is a scholarship for community college graduates who have not been able to go on and complete their bachelor's because they didn't have sufficient funds to do it. This second scholarship is a little bit of an experiment for us. We don't yet know the total number of applicants, division of applicants across these two scholarships, but we do believe that the majority of them are applying for the first-time college student. So we'll see whether we offer the community college graduate in the future. Your packets, when you get them, will include applications from both groups, applicants for first-time and applicants for the community college graduate. They both answered the same essay. But you may, in scoring them, take that into account, and you'll know that as part of the background data that you get. Scholarship basics, I've talked a little bit about this. We go to our students based on demonstrated financial need, demonstrated academic potential, or sometimes we use the word promise, and then this demonstrated determination to succeed. And I just want to pause to talk about this for a moment, because what we do is different often than other scholarships. We are not looking to select those that are the highest academic achievers. So it sounds odd. I'm going to say it again. We're not looking to accept those who are the highest academic achievers. We're not seeking to exclude them, but really what we want are students who first have this demonstrated academic potential, and Scholarship America will determine that by scoring the GPA, the GED test score, the SAT and ACT scores. But then just as important, and as you've now learned today, the scores that will be used in selecting the recipients from the finalist pool are your scores on the essays. And the essays are what really speak to this applicant's determination and motivation to succeed in life. How do they think about their educational career goals? What informed them? What do they see as the barriers? How will they overcome those barriers? And what will they do with their degree once they have it? So those candidates that can best speak to that and inspire and motivate you are the kinds of candidates that we want to award the scholarship to. If you look at the next slide, the award itself, the annual award will vary some, and that's because this is a scholarship that's intended to fill the gap between the cost of tuition and fees and the aid that the student is receiving. Now, many of our Dreamer scholarships will have zero aid, so that makes it a very easy calculation. But in California, Texas, our students are able to receive some state aid and in some cases institutional aid from the colleges. So in those cases, that would actually impact the amount of the award that scholar would achieve. You'll see there some more information about how the award actually gets applied. In some cases, we'll give a stipend for books and supplies, but that just gives you a context of what the award itself actually looks like. Our scholars need to renew every year, and it's not that they reapply, it's rather that they confirm their continuing eligibility. We require that our scholars have a GPA of 3.0 as they're in college, that they're enrolled full-time, that's at least 12 credits, and that they can have a continuous enrollment. We do, though, give exceptions to that where there are extenuating circumstances. And often, for example, if a candidate is falling just below that 3.0, it is the last thing in the world we would want to do to yank the scholarship. Rather, what the scholar does is give us an academic plan that they've worked on with their student advisor, whether it's tutoring, work study groups, that they're putting in place to help themselves raise their GPA. And then finally, all of our scholars make a commitment. And many of it is, the commitments are simply around maintaining eligibility, but what is really important to us is they make a commitment to really build a relationship with this student advisor that we have on campus and really take advantage of the student support services that are available to them. And then we ask that they make a commitment beyond their own academic success to the academic success of the other Dreamers that follow. So we'll have the opportunity for the first time this year, as we have students starting either in January and February or in next fall out of this round, the round that you will be evaluating. We'll have existing scholars on those campuses that will welcome them, and many of them are thinking about welcoming events and how they can really help them learn to navigate the college experience. So we're quite excited about that. So now let's turn to the details of the application itself. The application closed October 26. We will give the scholarships mid-December. Our goal is December 15. And that then puts pressure on all of us in terms of this deadline that Jim mentioned. The application, you've already had a pretty good exposure to it through Jim's comments, so I'm actually going to skip over that next slide. It tells you what's on the application, the essays, the letter of recommendation, and the supporting documents that they submit. You've looked at the prompt that tells you the 2 essays, and let's just one more time maybe just take a quick look at that. We've given a little more direction in this essay prompt than in the last time, and so it's sharing educational career goals, but we want to know what shaped them, the challenges the student thinks they'll face in achieving those goals, and how achieving them will impact their lives and the lives of others. And then with overcoming adversity, as Jim mentioned, we took out some prompts. And we did it because some thought the prompts were inappropriate. And then also because what a student describes as a challenging circumstance is in itself telling about that student. And I liken this to my years of interviewing candidates for roles, employment positions. I would often ask the question, describe to me a stressful situation and what you did to manage that situation and what you learned in doing so. And it's very telling what someone says is a stressful situation. If the person says it's getting 3 calls in an hour, that may tell you they have a very low stress level as compared to someone who will describe a very difficult working relationship with a colleague and having to learn how to work with them even though they had different styles. So I ask that you bring that same kind of mentality to this when you look at what does the person describe as the challenging circumstance. So now let's go to slide 21, and that's actually the selection process. So Scholarship America will verify eligibility, they're doing that now, and financial need. They will score the objective and academic criteria. You will read the essays and score the essays. Scholarship America will then rank the students the finalists, based on your scores. We will work with them to ensure that there is a robust cohort for each of our scholars, and then for each of our partner colleges, excuse me, and then we'll, by December 15, notify the recipients and the partner colleges of who's actually received the scholarship. If you take a quick look at the next slide, what's really being highlighted there is you will get your packets, access to your packets on the 14th, and by the end of the day, November 24th, we need you to have submitted your scores. And that really is essential for us to meet that December 15 date. So in your packets, let's look at that next slide. You'll get a link to the packets from Scholarship America. It will be a box.com link. There will be zip batches of applications. Each zip batch, as I understand it, cannot contain more than 25. None of you will have to read more than 50 applications. And you'll also receive a scoring spreadsheet. It's an Excel spreadsheet, and it will be in your box.com link. You'll read the applications, and you can choose to do that online. You can choose to download them, read them on your computer, or you can choose to print them and read them in print. You'll enter your scores into an Excel spreadsheet, and you'll do that using the applicant ID that Jim mentioned. So each packet will have an applicant ID. You'll find that applicant ID in the Excel spreadsheet, and that's where you'll enter your score for each essay separately. From there, Scholarship America will then stack rank those scores. And actually, I'm going to turn us to what's slide 25. It's a little more complicated than what I just said. We're going to have them do this. First of all, the first thing to do is when they get the scores back from all of you, they're going to calibrate the scores across the readers. So Jim mentioned that he happens to be a scorer that scores relatively high. And we may have others of you that are harder scores, and you actually score relatively low to the other readers. So if we find that someone is very high or very low, we'll actually calibrate their scores so that the applicants that were scored by that particular reader aren't overly benefited or overly disadvantaged. Scholarship America will average the 2 scores for each essay. Then they'll stack rank the finalists based on the total of the averaged essay scores. Then we will work with them to determine the cutoff point based on the number of scholarships we're going to award, and to ensure there's a robust cohort for each college. We'll also try to make sure in this round that we have a robust alternate pool, so that if some scholars choose not to accept the scholarship, we can then reach back into the pool to the alternates and offer it to them. So I'm going to pause now, enough talking at you, and let you ask questions of us, either over the phone or by the Google Hangout.
I have a quick question or clarification. Candy, you said, this is Delia. You said it's going to, we're going to have an Excel sheet sent to us. So the electronic piece is that the only electronic part is going to just be all the applications, right?
The Excel spreadsheet will actually be at your box.com link. So you'll get a link to your own folder, and your folder will have all of the essays that you're to review and your individual score sheet.
So I guess my main question is, are there going to be little boxes that we fill in, or
There will be.
Like,
so
okay.
The score sheet will have the IDs for each of your applicants that you're reviewing, and there'll be a cell for you to enter your score for Education Career Goals essay, and a cell for you to enter your score for the Overcoming Adversity essay.
Thanks. Thank you.
Good. Other questions? And while you're thinking, because we jumped into this so quickly, what I did not get to do at the beginning, and Eleazar, you need to have people be able to see your face if they can. We have a new intern, so I'm just going to take this moment to introduce him. So it's Eleazar Gutierrez. He joins us from, he's a California student. He graduated from CSU Bakersfield. And you can now see him sitting with Gabby. He is on his fourth day, maybe fifth day and getting up to speed. And we're just delighted to have him. Well, he is not himself a dreamer. His parents are immigrants. He very much knows the world of dreamers. He has done a number of internships where he actually has been working with dreamers, one in particular in California, where he was working with AB 540 students and their families in understanding how they could apply for and get California state aid. So Eleazar, just want to say hello to everyone.
Yes, hi everyone. It's a pleasure to join you. I'm very happy to begin working with TheDream.Us, and if I can assist you in anything, or while we go through this process of grading and providing these scholarships for our dreamers, please feel free to email me. I'm available. And thank you for allowing me to join the team.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you.
And Gabby, is there anything you want to add for the good of the order that I've failed to talk about?
No, I just think I want to make sure that we got everybody who's on the phone with us or in Google Hangout. I heard Selimar, welcome, Delia, and other folks, but I just wanted to make sure we gave some time for people who did not say hello to let us know who joined.
How about if I just do a quick roll call, and you can just say here. So Christian, you're here, I know. Jennifer?
She got off the call.
All right. Deborah? Do we have Jorge with us? Lotta, we know you're here. I think Herman could not join us. Veri, are you here?
Yeah. Mary, yep, Mary's here.
Oh, Mary's here, okay. And Veri?
Here.
Good. Jasmine? Okay, no Jasmine. Selimar?
I am here.
Okay. Alexandra is not. Let's see, let me keep going. Ed, are you with us?
Hi, Ed's on.
Great to have you. Diana? Claudia, do we have you? Luzelma? James Garcia?
Aquí estoy.
Good. Roberto? Taryn, I know we have. Anna, I know we have. Irma?
I'm here.
Okay. Do we have Angelo? No? How about Dulce? Mary Mazio we have. We have two Annas. I apologize.
Yeah, Ana Muniz, I'm here.
Good. And Silvana? Okay. Thank you so much. Now, questions. Any questions that you all have before we part ways?
Hi, this is Lucero. I'm also on.
Oh, Lucelma, welcome. We're so glad to have you. Okay. I am not hearing questions, so let me just then bring us to close. Should you have any questions when you get your essays and you actually start this task, by all means, reach out to us. And one of the things I think will be helpful is even if you're not going to start evaluating and scoring your essays right away when you get the link, it would be really helpful if you would just go open the link, make sure that in fact your batches of applications are there and your scoring sheet. And if for any reason it appears things are remiss, let us know right away so that we can get that fixed, so that when you do actually sit down and get ready to take on the task, then you'll be able to get right to work. And Angela, welcome. We saw that you are here. We're so glad to have you.
Yes, and I think Claudia is also watching on the Google Hangout.
Okay, good. So
I did have, hello?
yes.
Hi, I did have one question. So just to clarify, maybe I missed it. We have not received the applications yet, right? That link is coming?
That is correct. Our hope is
Okay.
that you will have them on November 14, which is not this Friday, but a week from tomorrow. And Scholarship America is working feverishly to help get that done. And then, of course, so
Okay.
the final date that you all keep in your mind is that date of November 24th, because we do have to have them back at that point in time in order to actually award the scholarships.
Yeah.
And we'll be sending out reminders. The committee last time asked that we keep sending them. So I apologize to those of you who may find that incredibly annoying. Please just delete them if you do. All right, so
Okay, thank you.
thank you all for taking this on. We are deeply, deeply indebted, and the Dreamers thank you. All right, goodbye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have 5 people viewing.
Sorry, ma'am.
Oh, good.
My laptop died right
Oh,
before you
no.
introduced me.
And so